Welcome, Age of Vintage Society. The love story of the Hollywood acting idol Sandra Dee and singer Bobby Darin is full of tremendous heartbreaks. Darin tried his best to manage their relationship, but fate was unfortunate to them. So many questions arise about their fate. Their love story continued even after the demise of Darin. How Sandra Dee's secret pain killed her marriage with Bobby Darin. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Sandra Dee and Bobby Darin, the dream lovers of Hollywood. The heartbreaking love story of Sandra Dee and Bobby Darin. In the 60s, Sandra Dee was the biggest star of Hollywood. She was admired for her excelling roles in movies like Come September, A Summer Place, Imitation of Life, and Gidget. Meanwhile, Bobby Darin was a famous American singer and actor known for his heartwarming talent. He sang in many categories like pop, jazz, rock and roll, swing, folk and country music, and outshined in them. But the beauty of Hollywood, who died at the age of 62, didn't have an easy time throughout her life. She had to face several traumas with her family and fame. Sandra Dee had a harsh relationship with her mother, got hooked on drugs and alcohol, and faced heartbreak over the collapse of her marriage to Bobby Darin. He is known for the songs Mac the Knife and Dream Lover, as well as his mega hit Beyond the Sea. There are two pitiful moments in Sandra Dee's life, and both moments revolved around persons Dee has loved the most, the love of her life, Bobby Darin, and her son, Dodd Mitchell. In both cases, Dee had to open up the grievous truth to her youngster. She had to tell her son that she and his father can't work together anymore. There was no bitterness in Sandra, but they discovered that they could not stay with each other. They had lived 6 happy years together, but the 7th was the unhappy one. Sandra was deeply hurt by the breakup with Bobby, but this decision was for the best for their son at that time. Both of them were agreed to the point that their separation would save their son from strain. They finally got separated in 1967 after 7 years of marriage. It was truly difficult for Sandra to tell Dodd why they are ending their marriage. She knew the condition of her ex-husband, so did their son to a certain extent. So, what was the reason behind their divorce? There is also a fact that Darin got married again in 1973 to his legal secretary, Andrea Jaeger. They met in 1970 and got married in June 1973. After a few months, they also got separation in October 1973. On the other hand, Sandra Dee, the true lover, never thought of a second marriage. She lived her whole life in love with her ex-husband and son Dodd. Dodd also wrote a book on the love story of his parents. Sandra told him every single aspect of their lives. The book became very popular at that time, namely Dream Lovers, the magnificent shattered lives of Bobby Darin and Sandra Dee. Fans of Sandra Dee and Bobby Darin still remember their love story. Even the second wife of Darin seems to be lost behind the proficient love of Sandra Dee. Sandra Dee, by birth name Alexandra Zook, was born on April 23, 1942. She began her career from modelling as a child model, started working in commercials and then in films in her teenage years. She received the Golden Globe Award for her heartwarming performance as a teenager in Robert Wise's Until They Sail in 1958. She became a global star for her mind-blowing performances in Imitation of Life and Gidget, both in 1959, which earned never-ending fame. In the 1960s, Dee performed in many hits of that decade like Come September, That Funny Feeling, If a Man Answers, Tammy and The Bachelor, and 6 others. In the 1970s and 1980s, Hollywood's interests had changed, and audiences no longer came up to see the films like 60s films that turned Sandra into a star at the start of her career. Sandra Dee appeared in only one big-screen movie in 1970, The Dunwich Horror, and in the same decade she also starred in 4 television-based films and also performed in several TV series like Love, Night Gallery, Fantasy Island and American Style. Let's take a look at the career of Bobby Darin. He was born Walden Robert Casotto, his by-birth name on May 14, 1936. His career began as a songwriter for Connie Francis and recorded his first hit, Splish Splash, in 1958. This hit from Darin was million-selling at that time. Afterward, Darin released some songs like Mac the Knife, Dream Lover and Beyond the Sea, and he became a global sensation. In 1962 he performed in his first film, Come September, and won a Golden Globe Award for his act. Darin worked on the Democratic presidential campaign of late Robert F. Kennedy and was present when the latter was murdered. In the last years of his career he isolated himself due to personal issues and fought with his health until death. Bobby Darin met Sandra Dee on the set of their first co-starred box office hit, Come September. The first impression of Darin was not pleasant to Dee because of his attitude and confidence. However, he was in love with Dee and planned to marry her. Sandra had no dating experience because she was 18 years old at the time. Hence, she ignored Darin on the set, yet he remained jokey with her because her reaction to Darin was better than nothing at all. When Dee's imperious mum, Mary Zook, saw that she was ignoring Darin, she ordered her to be friendly with Bobby Darin. The young actress accepted her mother's orders and went for a date with Darin, and just after the first date with Darin, she fell in love with him. Soon after, they decided to be engaged, which infuriated Dee's mom, and she cut her off for the whole of her life. Dee was depressed with her mum's reaction, as she never lived alone. She felt very alone in the world full of people and requested Darin to marry her as soon as possible. They married in 1960 without any delay, but Dee discovered that she was afraid of death. They welcomed their son after 1 year of their marriage, named Dodd Darin in 1961. Dee thought of the childhood trauma she suffered because of her stepfather, Eugene Duvan. He started touching Dee while he was dating her mum. Duvan persisted in the act after marrying her mother, who did not accept what was happening. Therefore Dee had no support or care, and she could not confess it to her mother. At the age of 9, Dee developed an overeating disorder due to the act of her stepfather. Dodd revealed each aspect of his parents' lives in his book. In the book he mentioned that after 30 years of her father's death, she told her mum that she was abused by Duvan. However, her mother did not believe her and said you were drunk and go to bed. The next day when Dee woke up, she again spoke the same words to her mum. Mary could not say any word after hearing that again because she did not have any comebacks. Meanwhile, Dee's husband didn't understand her secret pains even though she acted differently. He was also suffering from personal problems. He often faced mood swings and always remained in a hurry. As a child, Darin had rheumatic fever and had a forewarning that he would die young. That fear of death affected everything that Darin did. Following the birth of Dodd, Dee often felt tired, hence doctors gave her amphetamines to cope with the fatigue. However, she started its regular use and became addicted. Sandra Dee's addiction led to her and Bobby Darin's divorce in 1967. Sandra Dee never married after the death of Darin. However, Darin married again and divorced in 1973. Despite Dee and Darin's divorce, they remained lovebirds. Sandra revealed that she and Darin lived together after their divorce. The blonde beauty was at Darin's deathbed while he fought with heart ailments. Hollywood's most stunning beauty and teen star of that time captured many hearts with her excellence in the industry. However, no one was more mesmerizing than the singer Bobby Darin. Both hit it off by working together in Come September. The interesting thing was that Darin was completely in love with Dee just in the first meet-up. He just apparently declared to marry Dee during the first meeting, but he had promised himself to impress Dee anyhow. He was daring and got Dee in his life. The reason why Dee married Darin is here. Darin was less swagger than Dee thought of him. He was much more caring than Dee imagined. She was completely in love with Darin on the first date. You all know that Darin married Dee without any delay because he cared about Dee and didn't want to leave her in any tension as she was alone. As they had a son after 1 year of their marriage and they got separated for the betterment of their son's future, that separation led Darin to a new partner. But the newly married couple also could not stay together for more than a few months. so what can be concluded is that they both remained in love, even after divorce, like real soulmates. Especially Dee could not forget Darin's love till his last moments. She offered her service of love and affection in the last days of Darin's life in open-heart surgery. Author Dee Cameron, a friend of both stars, publicised that they stayed in love with each other long after their separation and even exchanged their thoughts to give their love a second chance. Unfortunately, their second effort for the relationship was short-lived. During her marital life with Darin, she picked up other bad habits, like gambling and alcoholism, leading her on a plunging spiral. Her condition got worse after her ex-husband's expiry, as she continued those habits. Eventually her deep anxiety, alcoholism and anorexia left the actress unhappy. Dodd publicised that his mum was engrossed in raising him on her own after Darin's death, proving herself a loving mum. However, her habits continued with her life even after her son grew up to an adult and started his married life. Dodd described how his mum, who became a real estate agent to make a living, always felt imperfect and empty after losing her reputation as a Hollywood star. He explained, in her mind, unless she was Sandra Dee, who had a major career and had things going, she was nothing and absolutely nobody. That's how she feels about herself. Dee finally quit her habits after being diagnosed with a kidney problem in 2000. The disease claimed her life only after 5 years. Professional psychologist John Cohen once opened strange details about Dee's ailments. After her diagnosis of kidney failure, the professional psychic opened up the fears of Dee's life. He explained that Dee could be on the edge of suicide. Dee spent her last years of life all alone with her maid Sonia, yet the prior teen star often loved someone else's company, seeming to be present in the home. She spent many hours in conversation with long-dead Darin while being all alone at home. Making it more curious, she told that Darin often comes to her and engaged her in discussions. Cohen carefully considered her behaviour as an unhealthy sign. Despite her very close ties with Dodd, she missed his wedding in 1993, which made an unexceptional media stir. Her son explained the reason behind the decision, that Dee was afraid of meeting and spending time with the new in-laws. The explanation seemed weak, as Dee grew up in Hollywood and spent her life meeting outsiders and speaking to millions on the stage. Hollywood's shining stars of the 60s, Bobby Darin and Sandra Dee, had one of the saccharine relationships in Hollywood, or so it could be seen from the outside. Dee also explained that their love story proceeded even after Darin's death, with the latter paying her visits subsequently. Not only Sandra Dee but also Bobby Darin found that Sandra Dee, his first wife, was his true love. Although Darin's recognition was a little too late, death also could not bring their love to an end. In 1973, Bobby Darin died at 37. Once their close friend revealed that they were trying a relationship again. Sue Cameron was a friend of both Darin and Dee, said, "The last time I saw Bobby, he said they were going to try a relationship again. Sandra was very much still in love with him, and he was still in love with her." Sandra Dee's later life was isolation, recovery and struggle relapse. Their son Dodd was always there for Dee, but desired she could live everyday life. Unluckily, she died on February 20th, 2005. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit our Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What happened to Sandra Dee and Bobby is just heartbreaking, whether it's a love relationship or business. Partnership has never been an easy thing in Hollywood. Watch this video and peek behind the scenes. How was the relationship between Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers?